Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today for the ISCEA Sustainable Supply Chain Series. Today I'm with Tiago, and he is a Circular Economy Innovation Officer at Sustainn. He's located in Spain, and he dedicates his time to support impact-driven change makers and innovators to apply circular economy practices and finding solutions by connecting people with innovation in different industries as a consultant. Through all of his experience, he's felt very empowered by the circular economy and helping entrepreneurs accelerate and transition from what is known as a linear economy to a circular economy. He helps by building bridges between private and public organizations, advising change makers on how to design and scale circular business models, and detecting green funding opportunities to help support these sustainable ventures. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome today Tiago to the ISCEA Sustainable Supply Chain Series. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you, Madison, for the invitation and also for the incredible introduction. Hello, everyone.
Great. Well, I know today I have a few really interesting questions that I would like to ask you based on your expertise and your current ventures. Maybe if you want to give everyone a little bit of a small description of maybe some current things you're working on at Sustainn, or we can go straight ahead and jump into the questions as well.
Yeah, I can explain you a little bit about what we do at Sustainn. So basically, we are a consultancy firm that works on circular economy. We were one of the first consultancy firms in Spain to appear working on circular economy. So we have a lot of experience on this topic. And what we do is something that we love, that basically is guiding organizations towards a circular economy model and sustainable future through innovation, consultancy services, and sharing knowledge. And as you said, my role here is to try to decode circular economy for change makers and innovators. So try to make a lot of time concepts that are complex and difficult, easier, simple, and practical to apply.
Definitely. Great. And I think that kind of feeds into the first question I was going to ask, which was, how are you currently transforming the supply chain to be more sustainable? And that is one, mainly through your role at Sustainn, but if there's anything you'd like to add to that, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think that we can look at this question from two perspectives. So on one hand, part of our job is to support companies and organizations to define their strategy to become more sustainable. And the big part of it has to do with the supply chain, because the supply chain is a key area to organizations to become more sustainable, because it has a huge impact. So a lot of the time when we are working with organizations to become more, to define their strategy to become more sustainable, what we do is we look at the supply chain and we find ways to make it more sustainable. So on one hand, we have that part. On the other hand, more internally, I mean, if we want to lead, we think that I think that a great way to lead is to lead by example. So something that we always try to promote the things we also say to our clients to do, and some of them have to do to measuring our carbon footprint, try to reduce the maximum you can, and what we cannot, compensate our emissions. So that is something. Right now we are carbon neutral. We have been for a couple of years. And that is one of our actions to make our supply chain more sustainable. Another one has to do with certification. So in order to have an external entity saying that we are validating our efforts to be more sustainable, that's also something that we put a lot of effort on. And another one, I mean, we have a lot of actions, so I just want to tell you the main ones. Has to do with the things we buy. So in here in Spain, we look at the EU regulations and guidelines, and the European Union as a green procurement on how to buy things depending on the sector and industry, and we follow those guidelines to choose our suppliers. But I mean, this is an ever-learning process. So,
of course, as it is everywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And I think something we can both agree on, like you said, is, education is very important. Here at ISCEA, we're also all about education and certification, and that goes into our certified sustainable supply chain professional certification. We think that, like you're saying, leading by example and through education is very important to us here as well. So I think that's something, our organization and you both mutually agree on. And I think one thing we can hop into building off of transforming the supply chain is the different roles in the supply chain and how they are influential in shaping this shift. And so my question to you would be, why should a supply chain manager care about sustainability? They're not in their title, in their business, their job description, maybe when they joined on to the organization, sustainability wasn't in the job description. But today we're finding that that's such a key role to a supply chain manager. So what is your opinion, and why should a supply chain manager really care about sustainability?
Well, I think once again, we can look at two perspectives to this question. On one end, the market is demanding, and the market is pushing and asking for companies to become more sustainable. And if companies or organizations want to become more sustainable, they have to look at their supply chain, because after all, supply chain is one of the key areas when it has to do with impact, and in most industry responsible for the majority of emissions. It is not enough if companies really want to make their sustainability strategies to work, it is not enough to control what is happening inside their doors, but they also have to look outside. And that is where a supply chain manager enters. Just to have an idea, according to some studies, in 2018, 115 of the world's largest organizations requested environmental information from more than 5,500 suppliers. So this is something that if you want to work with other companies, they will start to demand you as a supplier. Mm-hmm. So this is on one end, it's a demand from the market. And on the other end, it's also an opportunity. So sustainability can be seen as an opportunity to improve a supply chain and the business. It can improve efficiency because you can reuse some materials, you close loops, you can reduce waste if you use a circular supply chain. It can also improve stability because if a lot of times if we are talking about a sustainable supply chain, we are also talking about having a closer relationship with our stakeholders and with our suppliers. So it can also improve stability. And one of the aims of a sustainable or circular sustainable supply chain is to reduce waste wherever possible. And reducing waste can also be a great way to reduce the costs of operation.
Definitely. I think, I agree with you on both of those points. And it really is, from my perspective, a demand by the market. And it's really interesting to know that there are a lot of requests and growing environment to request information about suppliers. So that's definitely a step in the right direction moving forward that I am very excited to see. And I think before we get ahead of ourselves, something that is often assumed that people understand, but it's really not that simple. So I wanted to ask you, everyone really defines sustainability in a different way. I know at ISCEA we've created and we stand by a certain definition. in regard to sustainable supply chain. But from your perspective, what is the difference between sustainable supply chain and a circular supply chain? I know you are a circular economy expert, so I think you really will have a differentiation between the two. And it's becoming more common that there is a clear difference between sustainability and circularity. And so I'd like to get to know from you, what is your perspective on this and where does that distinction lie?
Well, as you said, Madison, it's not as easy as not as simple as it should be, in the way that each person has a different definition. But I can share with you my definition. For me, a sustainable supply chain should be the goal, while a circular supply chain is how you can get to the goal. So one is the why, is where you want to get, and the other one is how you can get to a sustainable supply chain. And they can live at the same time. So you don't have to choose between one and another. A lot of times these concepts, sustainability, circularity, they can live they can live at the same time, cohabit at the same space.
Yeah.
And so I think that to explain a circular economy, a circular supply chain, it's important to explain what is circular economy. So circular economy, just very quickly, is an economical model that first regenerate natural systems, design out pollution and waste. That's why we talk about eco design, about renewable energies and all of that. And one of the most important parts is it keep products and materials in use. So that's also why we talk about recirculation in the supply chain. On the other end, a sustainable supply chain is a broader concept. So you can apply the circular economy principles to a supply chain in order to make it sustainable. But if you want to make it really sustainable, you should also add the social part, to have something that at Sustainn we call the triple dimension or the triple impact. So you have the social, the economic, and the environmental impact. And I can give you some examples to make it more visual of what is circular economy.
I think with that, that we can kind of shift into something, is going to build upon this is, what are those important steps to move toward a circular economy? And I think you could, maybe speak to those three pillars that you guys stand by at Sustainn.
Well, the main steps to get to move from a linear to a circular economy. I mean, there are a lot of things that need to be done, and it's not either it will be or it will not be done, because everything points out that we are going in that direction. It's just a matter of how fast we will get to that point, because as climate science points out, we really need to accelerate our change. So, and in my perspective, the ingredients to foster this change are three. The first one is will. So if we want the will to change, so if we want to make things work out, all of us need to have the will to make things another way. And this means we as citizens and as consumers, but also as decision makers in companies or as leading a country. So this is the first part, will of change. Another ingredient is knowledge. There are a lot of examples of organizations that try to implement sustainable or circular measures or actions, but after all, they were not successful, or they had a negative impact instead of a positive impact, because they didn't study the different options that they had, and they maybe copied something that worked with someone else, but it was not the perfect fit for them. So it's really important to make organizations to make decisions based on data and on knowledge. And the third one, and probably the most important one for me, it's collaboration. So if we want to make things change, we need to bring everyone together to work in these issues. I mean, we need people from every sector with all kinds of background, because we are talking about a huge transformation that needs a systemic approach. So those will be the three ingredients, I would say: will to change, knowledge, and collaboration.
I couldn't agree with you more on collaboration. I think one, we talked about before, supply chain managers have a big role in this, but also it comes from every single person in every single industry. It's not, no one is too far from this. Every company or every industry can become more sustainable. Like you're saying, it's not, is it or is it not? It's just, are we working in the right direction? Are we headed towards a more sustainable future? As climate science is showing us, we need to accelerate this change. So I know that at ISCEA we agree with you there, and the fact that collaboration is key. And I think we can both say from Sustainn and ISCEA, both of our missions are to help to get those people there and to help and formulate collaboration in the ways that we can. And I think as we start to wrap up this, I would like to know, we just talked about how it's collaboration, but there are certain roles in which supply chain management can take the lead and help to move towards a more circular economy from a linear type of system. And I think I'd like to ask you, how can mid or upper level supply chain managers implement circular thinking in their own organizations? Do you recommend that, they come through a consultant like you and have someone from the outside do it? Or do you think it's possible to, internally drive change?
Well, that is a great question, Madison. I think I can give, well, first of all, the first step should always be get people involved. So we are talking about something that will change all the organizations. So first of all, we need upstream support. This should be something that should come from the leadership and should be a business priority. So you as a mid or upper supply chain manager, if you can, you should make the leadership to understand the importance of a sustainable supply chain. But it doesn't end here. So you need upstream support, but you also need the support from other departments, and you need to be speaking with them, because I mean, your activity as a supply chain manager affects a lot of different departments, and you can, I mean, yeah, you have to be in touch with them about all of these changes. And other key suppliers. So you should also bring to the party key suppliers in order to know how you can make this transition in a better way. And we also recommend an external entity like Sustainn to help you with knowledge in this transition to a sustainable and circular supply chain. Because as I said before, sometimes it's really easy to try to do something with a good intention, but then the result is not the best. And when we work in this area, you end up to know a lot of good and best practices to apply in different kind of businesses. So that will be the first step, get people involved. The second step is define the rules for your company's sustainable procurement manual. So after you get all the people involved, you should collect all the information for this manual. And this manual should be something that will be like, it's like a Bible for the supply chain. And you should have a more general one, so for all the suppliers, but also each case is a different case. So this handbook should be adapted to the different supplier categories that we are talking about. And the third one, the third step, well, is to implement and develop the sustainable supply chain. And here it's normal that a lot of challenges will come, but usually when it's done in the right way, a lot of opportunities also appear. It can be new business models, new types of revenue. So it's also a great way to drive as an organization. And here the supply chain manager can have a fundamental role to play. So don't forget, first step is to get people involved in this transformation. And if you need any help, let us know that we will be more than glad to help you to become more circular.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. I think, what you're speaking to and these first critical steps are just great ways that people and industries can start to work toward a more circular supply chain and hopefully head towards that circular economy transition that our planet is so much calling for, with climate science data backing that. I want to thank you again for your time today and bringing all of your expertise on this topic to the ISCA Sustainable Supply Chain Series. I'll be very happy to share your contact information with our global members, and hopefully you can provide some of that knowledge for them as everyone in the industry starts to transition to a more circular economy. So Tiago, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you today, and I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Thank you, Madison. And I hope you that listened to this conversation got some insights. We really need everyone to work out in this transformation. And it can be a great opportunity for you if you find a way to distinguish by applying some circular economy principles in your organization. So I hope you found this conversation helpful. And Madison, once again, thank you for the invitation, and we'll keep in touch.
Of course.